Hello and welcome to my very last minute October video, which is my work on Inktobertale. Now, usually I just take part in regular old Inktober, but this year I just knew I wouldn't have the time and also decided to attempt to help myself be a bit more interested in it. I do weird fandom stuff instead of the usual prompt list. Inktobertale is specifically a prompt list made by the creator of Inktobertale, Comiat, as a alternative to Inktober. The main rule of this was just that you had to have ink sands in every illustration, which kind of opens me up to messing around with AU stuff. Not that I did anything massively inventive, but you know. The list that we have now missed, but showed up at the start of this video, was the official prompt list for Inktobertale, specifically the shortened prompt list. I mentioned earlier that I had very little time, and I very much meant that I had very little time. I have been incredibly busy and incredibly stressed for the past few months, and I just knew I wouldn't have an entire Inktober in me, so I decided to go with a shorter list. This first illustration that I've gotten most of the way through was for theatre play, which I interpreted as a puppet show, because that would allow me to do a interaction between popular frenemies, Ink and Era from, I'd say from Undertale, but they're not quite. I thought it would be fun to have them putting on a little puppet show in the void for blue or swap sands. You'll also notice my colours are a bit weird. I'm using pink, blue, and yellow, and also black, white, and grey, but like, pshh. That's because I decided this year I would use CYMK as my limiting colour palette. Usually I'd either do black and white or choose a very specific medium, but this year I decided to do digital art because it's just a little bit of an easier or quicker medium to work with. And yes, CYMK was my limitation. This is the only one I did shading in, by the way. The next one, or this particular prompt, was Reap What You Sow. It threw me for a bit of a loop, but then I had the idea, why don't I base it on Underverse? Underverse, for those of you who don't know, is a very popular fan animation that goes through or interacts with a lot of various AUs. Undertale as a fandom specifically is very well known for having a lot of those things. I've been and are very into a lot of them as well. But yeah, so I'm not entirely caught up on Underverse. I've finished the first season and I am partway through, I think, Cross's episode of Inktobertale, which was the bitsy in the middle. I haven't seen anything from season 2 yet, please no spoilers in the comments. But a big reveal that I can remember, it was a while ago that I watched it, at the end of season 1 was Ink having kept a vial that contained Exgasta's soul, and that sort of shattering and causing the big dramatic cliffhanger at the end of the series. So for that, I used that as my inspiration for this particular drawing. It's also the one I thought turned out the coolest. Now this next one was the prompt Immortal. It was rough. I was like, what do I draw for that? So I decided to look to one of Ink's fellow Star Sands for that particular idea, and I went with Dream Sands. In his backstory, he and his brother sort of looking after the Tree of Feelings. He gets tricked into going and spending time with the villagers while they attack Nightmare. Upon his return, Nightmare's turned into something big and scary, and Dream eats one of the positive apples, turning himself into stone. Now that stone bit is the key cornerstone of inspiration for this, because I was like, what's a material that lasts a really, really long time even with erosion? Stone. And Dream himself, as well as his brother Nightmare, are more or less demigods, also kind of immortal. So the concept for this piece was that Ink had stumbled upon the ruins of Dream and Nightmare's old AU, and was sort of like, wow, what's happening here? So it's sort of before they've officially met, I suppose. You'll also notice that this looks very different from everything else, and that is because I decided that I would do a painterly style for this. As you can see, that is not my strong suit. It's also a bit tricky when I had CYMK to work with as my paint palette. I've done my best. The very background is a bit shoddy, but like, shh. It's just meant to allude to broken buildings in the background. Again, not the best work, but I was tired. I wanted to get it done quickly, so it is what it is. I also decided to draw Ink distinctively different from the rest of the background. And that was to sort of play upon the idea that he's sort of a foreign substance to this AU. He's something different from a different space, and so the way he's interacting with this new space is a bit different. The next prompt was Magician. It also threw me for a loop, but it ended up being one of my other favorite ones because the poses were kind of fun, and the colors just sort of worked really well with this. Our guest character for this particular illustration was Fresh Sans, who isn't really a Sans, I think. He's a Sans that's possessed by some sort of weird parasite. But yeah, he's a radical guy. Very... I think they call him a 90s nightmare. It's either that or 80s. I don't know either generation well enough to be able to tell you, I'll be real with you. But yeah, no, this one, I don't have a lot to say about it. Tumblr really liked it. TikTok really liked the next one. But yeah, it was just some fun, silly sort of interactions, I guess. Fun poses. Looks like two bros chilling, having a good time, goofing. That's about it. The colors were a little bit tricky to do with Fresh, actually, because, like, CYMK is kind of quite close to his palette, but he has a lot of extra neons in there, so I had to sort of shift stuff around and change a bit of, I guess, how his color palette sits and what got put where, because there's only so much you can do when you have 3 colors at your disposal, and I, for the most part, didn't want to mix things where I could avoid it. I also ended up, this was the only drawing that had writing in it, I believe, and it also got some fun little bus print patterns in the background because I thought that was very fresh vibes. The next piece was called The Unknown, and its concept I actually based on a kind of AU by a Tumblr user named HT or Sans, I'm not quite sure from memory, but it was sort of a idea of an anomaly. So some of you may be familiar with the fact that, like, X-Reader fics are very popular in the Undertale fandom. And it's sort of that idea of someone from a different plane interacting with Sans specifically. And with The Unknown, I was like, what if we look at sort of Ink staring into the unknown and the unknown staring back? He's known to be a character who is associated with creation and creators, and seems to be vaguely aware of our existence, though as a fictional character he can't directly interact with that. So I wanted to have the idea that there were all these sort of unknown, unseen entities sort of like scrutinizing him, and while he's aware of their presence, he can't really see or interact with them directly. This next one was Fireworks. I was not terribly happy with this. Like, it's okay, it has a background, it's... I don't know. I kind of wanted to try and copy what I did last year for Inktober. where I used predominantly black and white to do all of my illustrations, and I did a lot of sort of like wiggly lines for my water. It kind of works, kind of doesn't. I think I just perhaps went a bit overboard with the fireworks. I wanted to fill up the space. I've realized there isn't actually anywhere sensical that they are coming from though, but they're over water and they're gonna reflect in the water. Hee-hoo. Again, this isn't my favorite piece. It's alright. Not everyone is a winner. I feel like I say that constantly on these videos, but like, genuinely, you're not going to be happy with every piece of work you throw out. And this is the last main illustration. It was for the final prompt of the list, which was Halloween. I myself am from Australia. We don't really celebrate Halloween here. There's some bits and pieces that have started to be picked up because it's a very prevalent holiday in a lot of American media, and the idea of having sort of like a little day to do spooky, scary stuff is kind of fun. Like my friend group at least will usually do a Halloween party where we dress up. I didn't get around to it this year because I was very tired and had been at a market the entire day beforehand. But what I used for inspiration was trick-or-treating, so I had the Star Stanzas group trick-or-treating in front of Nightmare's castle. Nightmare is begrudgingly putting up with it, though he is not terribly impressed by the situation, which I hope his zoomed-in expression there is good at conveying. I have no idea if it is or not, though. But yeah, they all have funny little outfits. When I color in blues, you'll actually notice that I change it after a point. I wanted to make it a reference to One Punch Man, as he's a superhero that I think Blue would probably enjoy watching. It's a fun series, and I think it maybe would be fun for him. On the other hand, I can also see him getting really annoyed with Saitama's personality. But all my other costumes were kind of also references to things. For example, Dream is dressed up as a little jester guy to reference the recently, at this point, released Amazing Digital Circus. That was a short that really took the internet that I'm on the side of, at least, by storm. Ink was supposed to be a headless horseman, hence the jack-o'-lantern head. I also, in this little sketch you can see me doing, drew him with one of those stick horse things that kids have, just because I thought it would be kind of funny. His outfit is a little bit low effort, especially for someone who's meant to be an artist, but I don't know, I just really wanted someone to have a carved pumpkin head, and for some reason he felt like he fit the bill. But yeah, I actually ended up doing little sketches of the outfits for all of the characters pictured in the previous illustration, but also for the rest of Nightmare's gang, because the bad guys are my scrunklies and I rotate them in my head like they're in a microwave. Just heard a crashing noise in the guitar music, and I think that might have been the cat knocking over the blanket fort. Anyways, this next bit I'm drawing is Nightmare and Cross. As I mentioned, I drew all of the bad guy gang. Nightmare is meant to be a vampire, Dracula specifically. Both of them have big spooky castles and have weird supernatural abilities, so I felt like it kind of fit. I've also got that dramatic but regal aspect to it, which people often write Nightmare's character as being, though he rarely has the drip to match it. I believe Nightmare should get better drip, not just the stuff coming off his tentacles. Because he's a dramatic bitch and you can't tell me he wouldn't have a dramatic ass costume. Cross was a werewolf just to match with the sort of like aggressive supernatural creatures vibe. Dust is a sheet ghost, because it seemed like a very low effort costume and therefore something he may go for. And I did Killer here as a mafia dude, because I feel like that's something he would also probably go for. Horrors, when he comes up, is the most low effort outfit, kind of to match Sans himself, because that guy would not put any effort into a costume, as proven by the Halloween newsletter that came out today, where he literally didn't have one and everyone else dressed up as him instead. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Have a nice rest of your day. Bye!